Carefully. Carefully. Oh no! Oh! Guys! I've done it! Mad scientist Tekking here, and I have just discovered the single greatest combination of science fiction and shonen manga to ever exist. I present to you DR.STONE by Riichiro Inagaki, with art by Boichi, and you can check it out right now over at viz.com. I also managed to create this strange red liquid along the way. Not exactly sure what it does, but science! Oh, that went down rough. Alright, well, not really sure if that was some kind of acid, superhuman formula, or just soda. But I guess we'll find out. But gotta do a video before we find out the long-term effects of that, okay? Alright, so first off, thanks to Viz for sponsoring this video. And I am super hyped. I don't know if you can tell, maybe a vague hint, because the anime of DR.STONE is premiering tomorrow, July 5th. I have been a fan of this series for well over a year. I got on the DR.STONE bandwagon pretty early on. I don't normally, catch up with manga right when they're first getting started. I think it was like around chapter 10 or so when I started reading DR.STONE on a weekly basis. But I am glad that I did it, and I am glad I got on that ride before it really got crazy. Because boy, oh boy, has it gotten crazy. Now, there's not going to be any spoilers in this video for current events right now in the manga. What I'm going to do is just talk about the series in general to see if you would be into it. Maybe check out the anime adaptation tomorrow if you like what you hear. And I'll also go over some of the characters that comprise the main cast. Can't cover everything. This is just a really good, introductory into DR.STONE if you've maybe heard of it, but you've just never really looked into it. Because, there's a lot of series out there and you can't read everything, so I'm hoping that I'll provide some helpful information for you and see if DR.STONE is the right fit, okay? So, the premise of DR.STONE, it takes place, it starts off anyway, in our world. Everything's exactly the same, except for one day, out of nowhere, a giant flash of light in the sky erupts and turns every single human being on the planet to stone. So not that much of a difference, really. I mean, just every single Homo sapien frozen into a stone statue, and, nature kind of takes over, our entire cities get demolished, and we basically seep back into the Stone Age. Not really that big of a deal. And then the story jumps 3,000 years into the future, where our main character, Senku, awakens from the stone, as well as with Taiju and Yuzuriya and Tsukasa. I'll mostly be talking about them today. There are other characters that'll appear. I'll go into a little bit about them, but this is our main cast when you're getting into the actual series, okay? And I should also mention, when it comes to, reading the manga of DR.STONE, the first 13 chapters or so are more of just, a prologue to the actual series. So I would probably try to get it up till, chapter 20, if you can, and if you're not a fan of it by then that's probably the point when you'll realize that you're just not going to be. So if you just wanted me to tell you, an exact number, I would say around chapter 20. If you can get to that point and you like what you've read and want to continue onward, I think you're going to be a big fan, because things just keep getting, more and more intense as the series goes on, okay? So our main character is a high school student named Senku, who is basically Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, and every other genius in mankind thrown into one body, because Senku is an outright genius, okay? He is the one that will try to rebuild the world up from the Stone Age, and he's really our only chance that we got at this, okay? If it wasn't for Senku, even if most of the humans, emerged from the stone statues in the future, they would be completely lost. Senku has expert recall and knowledge about chemistry, physics, everything engineering, everything basically you would need to build civilization back up from scratch. Senku's goal is to get humanity back up to the point where it can fly into space, as we can right now, okay? Now, here's the thing about most of the cast in DR.STONE. They all seem to have at least one stat that they're just superhumanly good at. And that was something that kind of put me off on DR.STONE at the very beginning. I got used to it over a while, but DR.STONE struck me as a manga that was trying to stay as grounded in reality as possible outside of the mysterious light event and everybody turning to stone. I was thinking, okay, these are just ordinary high school kids and ordinary, characters that we're going to encounter throughout the series. Not exactly. They all basically have just one thing that they're really, really good at in a level that would be, basically like a superhero in our world, okay? So with Senku, it's his knowledge, okay? He's able to remember things, like, insanely well. Then we have Taiju, Senku's friend, who also awakens from the stone, and he just has really redonkulously high stamina. And I think the reason why Inagaki did this early on was just to kind of speed the manga along at a decent pace. Because if it's just two high school kids that are just like average as are in our world, they probably wouldn't get very far in a stone world, okay? So it's like when they create their treehouse to live in, it's like, okay, well, Senku comes up with the designs, and instead of having like 100 people helping him build the thing, he only needs one person. So that's really the point of this, to kind of keep the manga going at a decent pace. They also awaken a guy by the name of Tsukasa, who's referred to as the strongest high school primate. So he's like wicked strong, to the point where he can just take out 2 adult lions with his bare fists. Alright, and all this stuff happens within like the first 5 chapters of the series, okay? Senku also actually develops a cure for that petrification pretty early on. He figures out the compound that he needs to actually just splash on one of the stone statues, and the person will re-emerge from their hibernation. The problem is it takes a really long time to manufacture, and there's like 7 billion humans out there in the world, and they're kind of stuck in Japan with really no way out in this Stone Age realm. So even though he has the solution, it's not really a solution right at that point, right? They also awaken Yuzuriya, who is Taiju's love interest at the beginning of the story. He actually got frozen into the stone as soon as he was about to confess his love for Yuzuriya. So, from Taiju's perspective, I can imagine that's just the entire world just kind of screwing with him at that point. I'm right about to tell the girl that I love her. Come on, here it comes. And then, oh no, I'm frozen in stone for 3,000 years. I don't think anybody got it quite as bad as Taiju, but they do awaken Yuzuriya up later, and, so the second chances are available. It's okay. Now, when it comes to awakening from the stone statues, by the way, for some people, they're a little bit dizzy or disoriented. Not everybody, though. Tsukasa popped right out of the stone statue and immediately just floored those 2 lions, like, right out of the gate. When it came to Senku, he's interesting because of his insane brain power. He actually counted every single solitary second while he was frozen in that stone, because he knew he had to awaken at a point when he would be able to survive, like in the spring. He couldn't pop out of there in the winter. That would have been instant death. So he counted every single solitary second, and then he finally broke out of the stone. So that's like 3,000 something years he logged in his head. Alright, not something that any normal human can do, but I don't think Senku could be described as normal in any sense of the word, okay? Now, the very beginning of Dr. Stone basically hinges on this kind of like trifecta we have going on here. We got Senku, who is the brains, we got Taiju, who is the muscle, and then we got Tsukasa, who's kind of like more of the muscle. He's really buff and strong, okay? Eventually, Senku starts creating more of this revival formula, and he wants to revive the entire world, right? Well, Tsukasa's not super keen on that idea. He's more of the idea of, should we really revive everybody? I mean, there's some real jerks out there in the world. I think we should only revive the people that, deserve to come back, and we can start a whole new world, kind of maybe giving you a little bit of Light Yagami Kira vibes a little bit there. So Senku sees this coming a mile away, and he realizes that Tsukasa's gonna have some problems, because Senku and Taiju, they're good in their own respective rights, but if Tsukasa is their enemy, there really is nothing they can do about him, because, Senku at one point, this is insane, he takes out a crossbow, fires the bolt directly at Tsukasa, and Tsukasa just grabs that, just like a freaking glow stick, and just whop right out of the freaking air, and it wasn't even that big of a deal for him. So yeah, when that guy's coming at you, there's really nothing you can do. And so the first kind of like part of the series is Senku and Taiju trying to escape Tsukasa and find allies, okay? This actually ends up resulting in Senku having to fake his own death so he can escape off to this village that he discovers, while Taiju and Yuzuriya go and join Tsukasa to kind of keep the tabs on him to see what he's doing, okay? And this all happens within the first few chapters of the series, so this isn't really spoilers or anything, right? So I'm gonna leave this off here, basically starting the first major arc of Dr. Stone, the Ishigami Village arc. Senku discovers this village, a helpful girl from the village named Kohaku, her sister Ruri, who is a priestess, Suika, who's this little girl that's very handy at detective work, Ginro and Kinro, who are the guardians of the village, and Chrome, who is a sciencer. He is basically the primal, like, Stone Age equivalent of a scientist. Like, he's interested in science and all that stuff, so him and Senku team up, and Senku teaches Chrome as much as he can about the world around him, okay? And the point of the Ishigami Village arc, I'm not going to spoil how it ends, is gathering as many allies from that village as possible so he can build a scientific faction to fight against Tsukasa's faction of power. Alright, and I think you can kind of see where that goes there. There's an arc where they build power, and then there's an arc where they have an all-out battle. I'm not going to have anything more with that. There's also some mysteries abound there, exactly what the origin of the village is and how it connects back to Senku in some way, but we'll, you know, leave that for reading the actual series. Like I said, if you can make it to chapter 20, you're definitely going to enjoy it, okay? So yeah, Dr. Stone is an amazing series. I just love it. Now, when it comes to right now, when it comes to the anime, this has been something, I think it was announced several months, so when it comes to the anime, you know, and I first read Dr. Stone, after I got, you know, along the track of it, I was really feeling like, oh yeah, this was definitely going to get an anime at some point. Now, another huge aspect of Dr. Stone, and I think the reason why I keep coming back to it and I love it so much, is that every single chapter at least tries to teach you a new scientific principle or concept. Like I said, the manga is not 100% grounded in reality, but when it comes to the concepts of like, hey, here's how static electricity works, here's how you create a particular chemical, here's how you make sulfa drugs, you know, all of that stuff is as grounded in reality as physically possible, okay? Some of it you might question, could they really do that in this kind of like primitive world? And that's kind of up for debate, but the point is, you, the reader, is learning how this stuff operates, okay? So you learn stuff about how electricity and magnets work. How do magnets work? I had no idea before I read Dr. Stone. How automobiles, how cell phones work, and all just little stuff, you know, you figure out along the way. I mean, it really just makes you think at the end of the day how hard our ancestors probably had it, learning all this stuff and getting society to the current state it is right now. Now, granted, Senku, he thinks he kind of has like a step up on the competition because he knows how all this stuff works previously, alright? So he can figure out things like electricity no problem, whereas it took our ancestors a considerable long time to master that particular craft, you know? But that's the great thing about Dr. Stone. And you know what? The series just keeps getting better and better, and I think it's at like a high point right now. We're going on, I think we're about in like the fourth or third arc of the story, it's like the third major part of the story we're in right now, and it's going to, you know, huge new horizons there, and some chapters are more plot-centric than focused on just the science of it, but it doesn't matter because every chapter you learn at least one new kind of aspect about the world we live in right now, and that's just really cool. So I would highly recommend to go and check out Dr. Stone to read, and the anime is coming out tomorrow, so make sure you tune into that, and check out Viz at the links below. Thank you for sponsoring this video, and I am going to be going now because I think my words are getting a little bit, I don't know what this was, but I think I'm just going to take a little bit of a nap. See you guys!